I mean, there's some really great IFBB pros at that level that are just spectacular. And you look at them and you go, wow. And these women work their ass off. I just think on an amateur level, I just don't see the difference between the bikini and the fit model. I haven't done a show where they've had the fit model category yet. I don't know. I think it was just another way to just bring in more money for the NPC. I think that they definitely could have just put some more novice categories into bikini. And then, the whole thing with bodybuilding, right, is about growing. Like you said, don't be afraid of like who you were. It's funny, like I look at those Ellie Mae pictures. I mean, we laugh about it all the time, and people are like, what the hell were you thinking? And I was like, I don't know, man. I thought I looked really good. I look like crap. It just, I mean, it's my daughter is, she's now 20, she'll be 29. She's getting married in November. She laughs all the time about it. You know what I mean? She's like, Mom, she's like, whatever. She went to that first show, and that was like the first and last one that she went to. And she goes, Mom, you look so much better now. But I had to find that division that I felt that I was comfortable in. And literally when I started, I had no idea of like the difference between a bikini and a figure. I mean, like I said, there was no wellness, there was no fit model. There was just the bikini, the figure, physique, and then women's bodybuilding. And we tried me in the bikini for like 2 seconds. And my coach was like, absolutely not. She's like, you just like my body wasn't meant to do that. And I looked funny doing it, and I didn't feel, I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, no, this isn't, I don't feel right about this. Is just not me. So we tried figure because we felt like figure was like I had the height a little bit more. I was a little bit more, like I have a very broad upper body. If I didn't, my coach tells me if I didn't train my upper body for like a year, it would be okay. Because I just always like the first thing. It's just my dominant part. So I had just some good genetics there. Um, but I just, we did figure. And then after I competed, we did one show. And that's when my coach said to me, I really think you would be better suited in women's physique. And I said, yeah. I said, I want to take my shoes off, man. And I want to like feel the ground, and I want to do this. So she ended up hooking me up with my coach, who was her coach. And him and I have been together for almost 8 years. But um, like it's just the whole beginning and figuring things out. I mean, it was, but like you, to your point, about like that feeling and that addiction. I had coaches, this particular coach in the past, she was wonderful, but her big thing was like, we should do 20 shows. Like we should just keep going, like with this show and that show and the other show, and we're going to go here and we're going to go there and we're going to, and it was like, it's too much. And then I started working with Ron, and he was like, no, he's like, we train for like one show in a year. He's like, that's what we're doing. He's like, you 1 year, and you're going to give it everything that you have in 1 year. And that's what we've done all along, and that's what works out best. But I see all these women that they just compete, and they go from one to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other. I mean, you can only peak so many times, and it's not healthy.
Yeah.
It's not healthy.
Yeah, his thing is that, especially for women who are much like yourself, mature,
Yeah.
it's you don't have that same energy. It's one
Right.
thing if you're like a teeny bopper or a 20-year-old,
Right.
you remember you can go all night long, but then once your body starts aching and everything, I got arthritis in both my knees, and
Yep.
I can't do. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I know there's a lot more shows for bikini compared to the other divisions, but still, I think the average is maybe as an amateur at the most three three shows, like maybe a couple, maybe a regional, and maybe a couple of nationals, so you get your pro card. Other than that, I think your coach is pretty smart. And you say your coach is Ron, and
So, yeah, so
was
I'm coached by Ron Harris. So Ron Harris was the editor in chief of Muscular Development.
oh, I love that
Yeah,
magazine.
yeah. So which is no longer anymore. They
Yeah.
they they folded. They went out. But Ron, everybody knows Ron in the industry. He is very well known. Ron has interviewed just about everybody, including he's trained with Ronnie. He just had Dorian on his podcast. Um, it's called Ron Harris Muscle is his Instagram, and he has a YouTube channel, Ron Harris Muscle, and he does videos all the time. He actually just had a total shoulder replacement done, so he's recovering from that right now. But he's amazing. Everybody in the industry he knows, like Jay Cutler and him are very friendly. I've met Jay on several occasions. I've done two of Jay shows because I'm in the Boston area. So having Ron as a coach is super cool because he's just so well respected. And I'm like, I always get starstruck with him because he just knows everybody. And he'll like, he'll talk to me about, well, I was talking to Dory and I'm like, Yates, you know, he's like, yeah, and,
6-time Mr. Olympia.
yeah, he's like, when I mentioned to Dory and I have a female client. Well, I'm like, me? But like he's so well versed and he's amazing. He's just him and I for a little bit I kind of took a hiatus from him and I working together because he got very involved with the magazine. And just I had gone to a national level 2 years ago. I did Masters National and he wasn't we felt like at this point maybe I needed to have a little bit more. I was coached for a little while by Jose Raymond, who's also one of the best in the industry. Jose won the 212 Arnold, and he was in the Olympia. He was a 212 guy. Jose is crazy, and I still message him and stuff like that, and ask him for advice. And I love Jose. He's a great guy. But then and then I tried a female coach, and I just didn't feel like her and I like the distance. And Ron literally lives in the same town that I do, so we see each other face to face, and he knows me. He knows me better than any other coach that I've had. So I went back and and he's been with me through all my health issues that I've had. And I said to him, I really want to do this. I said, we've struggled. And I said, you're the only one who knows me. I said, can you come back with me? Because I don't feel right with anybody else. And the magazine happened to just not be anymore. And he had more time that freed up. So him and I are back together again. So he's an amazing coach. He is the ideal coach. He is what every competitor should have.
Sound like y'all, almost like y'all in a relationship. Y'all married,
I, well,
but
we've been 8 years
yeah,
we've been together, so yeah,
that's all.
yeah,
Yeah, that's I know ladies who tell me how long they've been with a coach, and sometimes it's that good relationship. It's finding that right person that's compatible with you mentally and physically that understands the aspects, especially for a woman. As all
yeah,
point ourselves, some coaches will give a same cookie cutter plan to the competitors. The same thing if they have to do for a man, they do for a woman. But as this, men and women are biologically different.
right,
We're the same race, but we're different. I'm not gonna say sex, but I'll say species in a way, and so it kind of fits.
right, right.
But I think it's a good that you have this relationship and what he's doing. And as you mentioned, he works for muscle development. I have something I want to show you, and this is what I have a saying from my other guy. He says, "If you get us something, never do it for free." And a while back, a friend of mine, her name is Eunice, and I always shout out Eunice. Eunice is IFB Pro. She's competing in a month at Tampa Bay. Shout out to Eunice, and she was at the 23 Olympia, and she got me this issue of muscular development.
Ah,
And guess who's on the cover?
that's my girl. That's her.
On she's I love her. She's my girlfriend. I just can't help it. I just think she's so beautiful. I don't yeah, she's just so beautiful.
She is one
and,
badass. She is
and
just
and one thing she did, which really makes me feel like, you know what, sometimes when I feel like, am I doing anything? Is it worth doing this shit about y'all ladies? Y'all don't appreciate it. Y'all know y'all. But when someone like Andrea, who is the current 5-time Miss Olympia champ, 4-time world women's bodybuilding champion, took a time out and autographed this for me
oh,
and tells me she loves my support. I
she's
know somebody this. I know the haters out there. You hate you can't hate anymore.
she's just she is one badass. So I before we when we had talked earlier, I had shared with you I did the 2022 Masters National. Andrea was one of the she was guest judging, so she was trialing out, you know, she eventually wants to do that. She wants to go in and she wants to judge on a panel. So what they do is they asked her to come in. Her vote did not count. Um, but but it was like practice judging. So she actually judged me, and her and I got a chance to chat for like 45 minutes, in between the day show, the morning show, and then the evening show. And we just talked about like diet and things. And I said, it was funny because I went to Masters National and my birthday is July 22nd, and I competed on my birthday. And I said, would be a cool birthday present to get an IFBB pro card? And she goes, that's really funny because I got mine on my birthday. And her and I just started talking, and I was like, man, I'm like, I just love you. And I said, I love you because you're real. Like you're just the real, you're raw, you're the real deal. And we talked about diet, we talked about different things. And then the night show came, and after the night show she was there, and she's like, hey, and she gave me a big hug, and I've got a ton of pictures with her. And she's like, let me break, she's like, this is what you need to work on, this is what you need to do. She's like, you'll get a pro card. She's like, for sure. She's like, do not walk out of here, because I placed third and fourth in my divisions. And she said, you better walk out of here with your head high. She said, you kicked ass on that stage. She said, you were amazing. But how cool was that I got to like hang out with her and be with her. And I find I've met, a few pros. Teresa, I can never pronounce her last name.
Ivasic.
Yes, I got to meet her at the show as well. And she was really cool. I found that all the pros that I've met, and a lot of them have been obviously male pros, they are very willing to give back and sit down. And Jay Cutler and I, we had a chat. We talked for 40 minutes, and they went to go get him. And he said, okay, Jay, your monster on stage. She's like, I'll be there in a second. He's like, I'm not quite finished talking to Randy yet. And they're willing to just give feedback and be there. And I've been so fortunate. I mean, I've gotten to be judged twice or three times by Steve Weinberger. And Steve judged me the last time I competed back in November. And I sat with him, and he gave me amazing feedback. We made a trip to Powerhouse Gym. We went to Bev Francis's gym a couple of years ago, and my husband made it happen that I could go and I could train with Bev Francis. And Bev and I trained for 2 hours. It was supposed to be an hour session. She's like, you came all the way from Boston. I said, yeah. She goes, you got another half an hour? And I go, I got all day. And her and I got to train. She's like, I want you to email me and let me know, send me pictures and let me know. So from time to time, I reach out to Bev, and Bev has always given me awesome feedback. So I find that the pros are just, a lot of pros that are out there, they get it, and they're just really willing to just help, and they think my story was pretty cool. So
Well, it is because you know what you've been through, especially doing your heart attack and other stuff,
yes,
and to especially a woman in later in life coming to sport. A lot of competitors come in when they start in their 20s and 30s, and then
right.
boom. Then I've talked to ladies who I know one lady. She's competing also coming up in Tampa. She's 62 years old, and she started at 55.
Yeah.
And it is when you find a passion for a sport, it really fuels you. So, folks, while we have Randy here, we're going to do this. We're going to jump into her social media for a bit. You'll follow her on her links are in the description on this live. You follow her IG. Also, folks, if you're interested, the thing about being a bodybuilder, there's a lot of expense. So if you're interested in donating, this is her GoFundMe link. You
Yay.
can go to the link into the live stream. It's in the link in the description box. Hey, it doesn't hurt if you can send $5 or $20. That's all. It takes enough people to make you start off like a little pebble, and then boom, 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 it's a snowball. That really helps. So if you want to follow her and also reach out and maybe support her, her links in the live stream. But guys, I gotta tell you guys, there's no offense to you, Randy. It's no offense to you. I gotta say it because my conversation with ladies, they tell me there's some guys out there. And I know because I am one of you guys. I'm a muscle Paris, so I love these buff, beautiful women. But see, this is one thing, guys, you should never do, especially tell a lady, no D pics. Stop it. Get some help. What's wrong with you? Oh my God. You're gooning out there, fellas. You're gooning. That's what the kids say now these days, gooning. So, folks, give a second. You're going to get us there. We're going to jump into her IG here. You want to follow her links in the description. Also, you want to donate, you can donate to her GoFundMe. It helps out. Any little bit helps out. So here she is, and this is also a little advertising stuff. NBC Masters USA, November 21st to 25th, 2025, Las Vegas, Nevada. 54-year-old female heart attack and thyroid cancer survivor will rock for women's health. Oh, it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a funny picture.
It's nice. It's like, you see the arms. See, the guys just don't care about the arms. You say, like, he got some big muscles here. And,
Well, I
go
have
ahead.
to tell people on that picture that we did that through Chat GPT, and I kept telling Chat GPT to try to make me look smaller. That's real. But Chat GPT on the other one, it was really funny because it doesn't even, it like the eyes didn't look like me. So we created a poster. My daughter's like, will you take that down? She's like, that doesn't look anything like you. So, but I kept it up there because I thought it was funny, you know.
Yeah. And here's this when you first started to, what year was this one here?
So that was 2018. That was when I competed at my first MPC. So that was Jay Cutler's show.
Wow, you shredded to the bone. Look at the pecs. Look at the
Yeah,
arms. Look at the delts.
yeah,
Wow, you
yeah.
cut
I
up
don't look
like.
like that right now, but yeah, that's we got me. I was tiny. I was so lean. I was just, it was crazy. I was almost like too lean. But it was my best.
Well, this is also, folks. This is the GoFundMe. You can go find it, and also on her IG. And here she is doing a little cycle training. And what's your favorite when you're in the gym? What's your favorite thing to train?
Back.
Ah. I often say that back is the body part that make or break how you play, especially in divisions like figure, physique, even women's bodybuilding. Because the other divisions, you don't need to show your back off too much, like a bikini and wellness, because the hair is in the way. What's the one you feel like that you say, shit, I don't want to do this shit. I'm tired of it.
Legs.
Like any bodybuilder, most don't like leg days. Here's one of her man, Ron. Like,
Yep.
here's the thing about leg day for a bodybuilder. It's like that. If you ever saw an episode of Chappelle's show when Rick James goes to Eddie Murphy's house, he goes to the couch, says, F your couch, Eddie Murphy, F your couch. And then Charlie and Eddie beating his legs. That's leg day for a bodybuilder. You like Dave Chappelle dragging out, saying, what my legs, Eddie Murphy, But you and Ron have a good relationship, and I think a lot of competitors, they do prefer to do face-to-face with their coach over going online.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we don't him and I don't get a chance too much to train together. We do check-ins maybe like once a month, but I basically train on my own. But as we go further into my prep, then we tend to get together a little bit more and go through. Especially him and I do. Legs are my deficit. I had a knee replacement, so it's always been a challenging part for me. So we get together and we train. We don't really train anything else but legs. I think, George, I lost your face. How do I get back on?
I put you back on because my face is, once I pull this thing up, my
Oh,
face is
okay.
gonna, yeah. So
I thought that I did something wrong. Okay,
no,
as
no,
long
no.
as
That's on my
okay,
end because I'm controlling here. But here, because we're right here in your IG right now, and here he
okay,
is with my man David Bryant, also a lady who I had pleasure interviewing a while back, the lovely Ivy Pro Rachel Jaffe. This was your second
yes.
live with David. David's a pretty good guy. I mean,
Dave's
his
a
channel's
great
been
guy.
growing.
He's
Yeah,
big shout out to him. What he's doing on his channel is really giving us a great forum. He's awesome.
yeah. He's been on my channel, and also I got one beef with David. A while back, David was at the Triple O. This was like when the debut of Triple O, and he had his hands around my girl. I tell him I love David. He's my brother. I tell him, don't put your hands on my girl. I mean, I'm sorry, Randy. I had just here she is right now. Give you a little review here. We're gonna pull it up and you can listen to it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of competing in bodybuilding, you competed for since 2019, I believe.
Yes.
And what was your first contest, and who kind of talked you into doing your first contest?
So when I was going to this gym, somebody said to me, because I just started, they could see I had a passion for really I was in there 7 days a week, to the point where they were like, you can't come in tomorrow because you need to take a rest. And somebody said, did you ever think about doing bodybuilding? And I said, no, I'm not going to get up there in that bathing suit and the shoes and whatever they do up there. I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then I went home and I thought about it, and I looked at my husband and I said, you know what? I said, I lost all this weight. I said, maybe I should try this. I said, you got to train. It's not like it's a beauty contest. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess it is, whatever. But, I said, well, he said, all right, let's do it. So I hired a coach. And then,
That's pretty much, because I remember that's your first interview with David, and here
yep.
she is training, and it's
It's
again.
okay. It's okay.
How long have you been a personal trainer now?
So I've been a personal trainer for about 10ish years. Um, I got into it when I started to lose all my weight. So I would say probably about 9 years now. Um, and so now this is my full-time job, what I do.
Do you mostly work with people like who are either looking to find healthy ways for their lives, or have you worked with any competitors yet?
So I haven't worked with competitors yet. I have had, people off and on approach me and ask me. The problem with that is that, when you're prepping yourself for a show, it's really hard to prep somebody else for a show. And also, the clientele, in terms on a competitor level, I want somebody to be serious about it. You're either all in and you need to do it for the right reasons, or I'm not the coach for you. But my basic clientele is, I would say that our average client at the gym that I work at is anywhere between 40 to, we have 80-year-olds, and just functional training. They just want to just be healthy, and, they want to be able to get up off the floor if they fall down. So I work with a combination of men and women, and they are a great bunch of people.
Well, that's good because I think, especially like people tell me, you're never too old to start
No,
because it's. I think with more people, especially if you're from a different generation, you don't need. You feel like exercise for that for people who are young who can run around, do this, yeah. But it helps with dealing with things like aging, like osteoporosis, arthritis. I mean, it also helps with you like losing weight because I can tell you the truth because at one point I was almost because I was taking care of my mom for a long time and I would put myself to the side. I'm also a victim of a heart attack. I have a pacemaker. I have for almost 10 years. Well, 10 years now, I would say exactly. It's going to be 11 years coming up this in September. And, it's important to try to take care of yourself because, one thing was I was working a lot. By the time I was 16, I had my first job. And then I had two jobs, working both at the gas station, working at textiles. And then I was working at a gentleman's club when I was younger. And those when you work at night, you eat bad habits like that. And then I had my first heart attack when I was working on my job at this meat processing plant. And I thought it was just a cold because I work in the cold storage. But then I found out when I went to the next town over, my sister stayed. I was at the hospital, told me that I had a heart attack, saw a specialist, and next thing I got a pacemaker. It's a lot that you need to really understand the factors of growing. I still take medication because I got to take it because I need it because of the situation. We got here, man coming through, my man, KL the Wanderer. Shout out to him. He says, hey, good afternoon. Hey, good afternoon. Happy 4th, brother. You can talk now. I'm done.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, like I said, like most of my clients that, they just want to be able to be healthy. A lot of them have come in, got high blood pressure, and, they're diabetics. We've been able to help people get off of their blood pressure medication or reduce their insulin, or maybe even get off of insulin, at some point. Women, over 40, ladies, like, crap happens, you know what I mean? Like, we lose that bone density every year, and we need to stay strong. So, I always tell my women strength training is vital, and a lot of women, they do, they get on, they do a lot of cardio, or they work a lot with bands, and that's fine, but you need to really take care of that your bone density. So we do our female clients. I have 80-year-olds who come in and they lift, they get on a Smith machine and they lift weight with me, and they're pretty amazing. And my boss has done an amazing job with his business. Some of his clients have been with him for 15, 16 years now. And it's because of just that type of the environment that we have there, which is very much like a family. So like when you walk through the door, like you know all the trainers, and you're not assigned one trainer, you're assigned a team of trainers. So they might have me for 2 weeks, and then the other trainer who works opposite of me, they'll have her for 2 weeks. So it's really nice, and we're all different. So like mine is very much like strength training and bodybuilding-esque training. I want to help people build strength. We have trainers that do like a lot of functional stuff, which is awesome. They people who do mobility stuff, which is like really isn't my wheelhouse. So it's good. So they get like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But the goal is to help people stay healthy. And my heart attack, everybody was surprised when I had my heart attack. Nobody could believe that I had a heart attack. I remember like my family telling the doctor, you must have made a mistake because she's a bodybuilder. And she's in the gym like 7 days a week, and like she doesn't eat anything but protein, and like you could wave like a donut in front of her and she won't eat it. She's just that disciplined. And my dad, I had told you before we started the interview, I lost my father at 48. He had coronary artery disease, so I have a strong family history of heart disease. My mom's a diabetic, cancer. So this was 2021, yeah, so Labor Day weekend. And I was in the gym. I had just worked a shift. This is when things started to open up from COVID. I didn't know. People ask me, did I have symptoms? I don't know if I did, because I was really tired and I was a first responder and I worked a lot of hours to take care of a lot of sick people. So I don't know. I don't know if I was tired or not. And I had to wear all the gear and the PPE and I was tired. I worked like 18-hour days, and sometimes I'd have to work 5-6 days in a row because we just didn't have, I was an agency nurse, so I went all over the state of Massachusetts. And we just didn't have nurses. We didn't have nurses aides. We didn't have anybody. It was just us just taking care of these patients. I mean, there were days I walked in and it was like me and another nurse, and it was like, all right, it's just us. We got to take care of these people. And we did everything that we could to try to take care of these people. So I don't know. People would say, were you tired? Yeah, well, yeah, I was tired because I worked like 100+ hours a week, and it wasn't a voluntary thing. It was an involuntary thing. This is what we had to do. And the first responders and the nurses that stepped up to the plate to do this is what we did. And we weren't going to leave, and we weren't going to leave our patients. So I came home. I live north of the Cape Cod. So we have the South Shore, the North Shore. I'm kind of like in between, like on the South Shore. So I'm probably about 45 minutes from Providence, and then like 40 minutes from Boston. So I'm like right in the middle. So I happened to be working down the Cape that day, and I drove home, and I just was really tired. And I said to my husband, but you know what? I'm just going to go to the gym and do some cardio. And he went to the gym with me, and he usually didn't go to the gym like on a weekend. He doesn't work out too much. But he was like, you know what? I'll go. And I was like, okay. And like we went to the gym, and I was supposed to go and meet a friend to go get something to eat after I trained. And I got off the treadmill and I was like, I don't feel good. And he's like, well, what's the matter? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's my blood sugar. I have like really bad acid reflux. Like, I don't feel good. I said, I'm going to go into the bathroom and just put water on my face and I'll come back. I laid down on the cold floor in the bathroom because I just felt like I couldn't move. And I crawled out onto the gym floor, and I guess I was gray at that point. And I said, I don't feel good. And he said, you don't look good. And they called 911. And he said to one of the kids that was working in the gym, he said, I guess he mouthed to him because he didn't want me to panic, go get the defibrillator because I looked really bad. And they came in and they said, we got to get her out of here now. She is having a heart attack. And I was a cardiac nurse for years. And I said to them, I'm like, all right, this isn't funny. And they're like, we're not being funny. That they're like, you're having a widowmaker. And I went, shit. And I actually saw the rhythm, which like when a widowmaker, it actually looks like you tombstones on your EKG, which means that I was in complete heart failure on my right side. So they immediately took me to the closest hospital. There was a team on standby. And I remember being wheeled into the emergency room and the doctor being there and saying, okay, Randy, you either sign this consent to have a cardiac cath, but you could die, or you don't sign it and you could die. So those were my choices. So literally I signed the consent as they were wheeling me up to the cardiac cath lab. And then I went in and they had to place 2 major stents in the right side of my chest. I guess my ejection fracture, which is what tells you what your heart is actually doing, the capacity that it has. literally like was like 10%. I
Ooh,
should have been dead. So I
yeah.
guess when they went in, they put the stents in. I remember coming out, and remember it was during COVID, so I couldn't have a lot of people there because everybody had to be tested and this and that and the other thing, which was another scary thing. I remember my daughter looking at me and her going, "Mom, not for nothing, but you look 25 years younger." Because I had like, because all the blood came, all the blood came back. So that was Labor Day weekend. And then I had to go through, as you know, like the recovery period. My doctor did not put me in a cardiac rehab because he's like, really? He's like, you can rehab yourself. He's like, I
Hmm.
don't need to send you to cardiac rehab. So what I started doing is just walking because, as you know, that's all we could do. Couldn't lift, couldn't do anything. So I would start walking and like little distances, and I would have my best friend would come over almost every day, and him and I would just walk together as much as I could to like I was getting up to doing almost like a mile a day, which was awesome. Then the doctor said, okay, you can start driving, and I had belonged to a gym that had a pool, and I started doing like walking in the water, and I would drive myself twice a day because I didn't have anything else to do. I couldn't work. I was home. So I went water walking, and then finally went and had the stress test done and got cleared. And the doctor said, okay, you can start training again, but you got to do like really lightweight. And like lightweight was like 25 pounds. And I remember going into the gym the first day again to train and crying, going, are you kidding me? Like I used to be able to bench press 190 pounds, and now I'm doing 25 pounds, and I had a really good friend who used to train with me, who still does. And he said to me, he's like, you need to stop this. He's like, we start here and we need to, he's like, cut the crap. He's like, we got a show to do. And I started getting stronger and then better and stronger and better. And I made a promise to my cardiologist, which we still keep to this day, that if I can't move the weight, then I won't lift the weight. That's just the way that it goes. So I ended up recovering. And then, fast forward a year later, I went to Virginia and did the Battle Royal. That was one of the pictures that you showed with me with the sword,
Hmm.
where I won my overall. So I did first responders, masters, and open, and I won all three divisions. We were going to do the Jay Cutler show here in Boston, and I kept saying, I'm not ready. I'm just not there, And I said, but you know what, though? Virginia's not that far. We can make it happen. I've been through a lot of crap. A little trip would probably be nice for me to do. And we did it, and I won. And it was so
Congratulations.
cool. It was amazing because I don't know. I mean, I survived going through all that stuff and then being able to come out on the other end. And at this time, I was I was 50 years old because I remember my birthday's is this month in July, and I had turned 50 the year that I had my heart attack. So I was like 52, 51, 52 when I went to Virginia, and it was really cool. And I won the overall. So then we started to get ready. We trained for a national show. I went to Masters National. I did third and fourth in my class. And then we were like, all right, we're going to hit it hard. We're going back to nationals again. And then bam, I got diagnosed with thyroid cancer.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, you've been through hell and high
Yeah.
water. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
my mother, she had caught the virus in 2020, and she was already sick because she had to deal with, she had like series of seizures. She had a stroke. She was also diabetic. My father, he had heart issues. She died back in 2014. I had a brother. He had mental issues. He passed away in 2020 in 2004. It was 04? Yeah, it was 04. It was like 043. It's been a long time. Yeah, it's been 22 years. So that'd be, yeah, 03. And my sister, she had a stroke, and she was like not even 50 yet, I believe. I can tell you it's thing about the genetics. That's a fact, especially in bodybuilding. Genetics is one of the important factors. And that's the thyroid, for people who don't know the details of it. What does the, as you as a nurse, you can educate some people slightly. What is
Yeah.
the purpose of the thyroid and what does it do and what
So
why?
the thyroid basically like is your control center. Okay. So it regulates like everything. It regulates your metabolism. It can regulate like your hormones, your balance, like everything. So now when I had I went to the doctor. So, back up just a little bit. My thyroid function was completely normal. Okay. My labs were normal. Everything was normal. I went to my doctor because, as you alluded to earlier, like, as women get older, like I like to call myself a menopause mama. or MM, because like, it is what it is. Like we get to a certain age and I'm like, and it was so funny because I think it was Virginia. We went to Virginia. I came back and like within a couple of days, I swear to God, it just like kicked right in. And I was like, what the F? I'm like, I was like, just a completely, like, I didn't feel the hot flashes, everything. So I went to my primary care doctor at the time. And I said, listen, like, you got to do something about this. I said, because I'm going to kill somebody. I said, like, literally, like, I'm going to hurt somebody. I said, I don't feel good. I'm not sleeping. Like, you tell me I have to get this rest. And I said, it's not my training, because my mother, I love her to death, but my mother, everything with my mother is like, well, it's your diet, or it's the fact that you train so much, or like whatever. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like 50 something. And I'm like, I had a hysterectomy at 41. I was lucky that this didn't happen then. I'm like, it's here, it's coming. I know what it is. And there's got to be a way for us to manage this. So I said to him, he had put me on an antidepressant. He said, I think that this will like really, this will help. And I was like, crap, man. I'm like, I'm depressed because I don't feel good. I'm like, I don't think I need an antidepressant. I think I need you to fix like my issue. So I went back to him and I was like, listen, you got to do something. I said, I'm telling you, I'm like ready to like jump off a roof. I'm like, I'm going to kill somebody. And great doctor. But he didn't believe in hormone therapy. My grandmother had hormonal breast cancer. And with my heart issue, he was concerned, obviously, that, that it was risky. And I was willing to take the risk because I just don't feel good. So when I was in there, he was kind of palpating around and he said, And I said, what do you mean, He said, this wasn't here before. He said, I don't think it's anything. Because he was never an alarmist, my doctor. And he's like, let's just go get we'll get an ultrasound. So I said, all right, whatever you want me to do. I went and I did the ultrasound and then he called me and he said, I'd like to get a biopsy. He said, nah, I don't know if it is, but let's just rule everything out. I said, fine. So we went and we got the biopsy done. And I remember because it took about a week to 7 to 10 days for them to come back with the pathology. And I remember after I had the biopsy, the radiologist who did it he was awesome. It was a young guy. And I remember he was talking to me. He's like, man, you're jacked. As he's in there doing his thing with my neck. And he's like, how do you get like this? And him and I are like having this conversation. He was so good. And I said to him, you can't tell me. And he's like, well, we're going to just see what happens. He knew that it was cancer. And I remember it was like about almost 8 days to the day. I was in the gym and we got the phone call and it was my doctor. And he said, let me tell you why this is papillary thyroid cancer. And that just changed everything. So I went and I said, well, like, do we have to do it now? Because that's always my thing. I'm like, well, can we wait? Like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how important is this, Because I'm like, my labs and everything were completely normal. I went to you because I didn't feel good. And he said, we got to get this done. So he ended up connecting me with the surgeon over at Brigham Women's Hospital, which is one of the top hospitals in this country. In Boston. In Boston, we are very lucky because we have some of the best hospitals here in the country, in the world in general. And so I went to this amazing doctor, and my daughter went for the consult with me. And she said, you have a choice. She said, we can just take out the section that was there because it was the left side of my thyroid. And they said, we can take out what's there, get rid of the cancer. And then, there's a chance that you may or may not have to go on like replacement therapy. Let's see. Or we go in there and we take it out. And I said to my daughter, I don't want to go through this again. And I said, there's a chance that there could be something on the other side. And I said, it could come back. And I said, I don't want to do this again. And I said to the doctor, what do you think? And she said, it's really your decision. She said, but I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't support this. And I said, okay, let's do it. And thank God we did, because when she went in, apparently I had like 3 different areas on that side that were cancer. I had no symptoms, George. I didn't know anything other than feeling like the fact that I just wanted to kill somebody because it was my hormone, because I just didn't feel good. So we elected to take my thyroid out. And, there's still days where I'm like, oh, I wish I never did this, because it does, because it controls everything. So especially being a bodybuilder, your metabolism at one point will get, will go, get very high, especially like in your off season, like the more cardio that you do, you're cutting down on your diet. It didn't matter what I was doing because I could not get I was like I had hypothyroidism because I had no thyroid. So now I'm on replacement for the rest of my life. So T4 is your